Data centers have become this huge flashpoint across the country, and even in some cases, turning violent. A small town in Iowa is just the latest example. Take a look. City leaders delayed this meeting after receiving online death threats over a proposed plan to build a new data center in town. Earlier this year in Indianapolis, someone shot at this councilman's home, leaving this no data center note on his doorstep. Tom Winter's been following this and has more on the troubling trend.
Yeah, Ryan, as you know, for the past year, we've been focused on data centers and we've been focused on the electrical usage. Is there enough power on the grid to be able to supply electricity to not just data centers, but to the homes of businesses that already have them? Is there enough water, enough ability to air condition these data centers that throw off a lot of heat? There's been debate locally about the appearance of these data centers, not exactly masterpieces in architecture. And there's even been, just as recently as this week, discussions about the financing of data centers raised by Pennsylvania Governor Josh Shapiro. But the idea of threats over these data centers, particularly focused on politicians, is something, as you suggested, is really starting to come to the forefront here, and is even in one instance involved the FBI. There was an incident in April of this year where 13 shots were fired, as you mentioned, into a Councilman Ron Gibson's home in Indianapolis. The FBI is taking a look at that case. So far, no arrests that we're aware of. You've got an incident just a couple of days ago in Marshall, Michigan, where there was a what's been described as a legitimate or credible death threat there to the city council as they approved a one-year moratorium on data centers. In Salix, Iowa, there was a discussion and threats that were made following a consideration by the city council there for a one-year data center moratorium, and then additional death threats in Emporia, Kansas, that led to city council members there having virtual meetings, going back to something that hadn't happened, according to people commenting on that decision in the community, happened going back to COVID. So there are definitely now threats about this. The political violence has been well covered over the last couple of years, and now the question is really the data center issue the key lightning rod here going forward, and are we going to see more threats, and are there going to be arrests as a result of that? Just points to the fact that this is really becoming a heated debate.
Shalom. First and foremost, I would like to give all praises, honor, and glory to Yahweh Bahasham, Yahweh Shai, Bahasham, Rachak Wadash, and double honors to the apostles and elders of Great Millstone. Shalom to the hopeful elect. All right, before we jump into what I really planned on getting into through the Spirit, all right, something hopped on my mind, and thinking about, this whole Lindsay Clancy, I think that's the chick's name, the woman who took out her own 3 children, and you see the rallying behind her, the people who are rallying behind her cause. And I see this as obviously some sort of set up event, but when Esau sets up events, all right, or when at least they set up things, it's normally for a reason, all right. And I was thinking about how it seems like they're trying to prime people, get people used to killing, because here it is, she killed her own 3 children. It doesn't really get much worse than that. A mother killing her own 3 children, it doesn't really get much worse than that, right? And you still have people who are down with it, so it's like Esau is trying to test the waters before they start killing Jake, because hey man, if these people are behind the killing of their own, how do you think the reaction is going to be when Esau start killing Jake, man? All right, so it seems like they're trying to test the waters before they really turn things up, so that's why we ought to be prayed up, all right. And we already know these devils are coming sooner or later, all right. And honestly, we want them to hurry the hell up. They steady beating around the bush and playing the games here, playing games here, setting up certain events. Esau, you could just come the hell on, man. Right? Because we have a higher power. All right. We have a God. All right. That's backing us already, man. And we're ready to see something. Throughout the scriptures. All right. Whenever our people went to war. All right. And they were, backed by Yahweh Ba'Shem Al-Bashai, they saw something, man. All right. We are in the times where the Lord has been very dormant. Salakia, very dormant when it comes to divine intervention. All right. Yes, you have the Lord doing things here and there for certain people. All right. You hear certain testimonies, but on a wider scale. All right. The Lord has been very dormant, man. And we are ready to see the power that we truthfully trusted. We're not trusting in the Lord for no reason. We want to see him work. All right. So, yeah, that was on my spirit, but what I really wanted to get into, which I'll Lord's will, I could put the video post-production, but going into people protesting against these data centers, right? The title reads, city leaders face death threats. So you have people facing death threats for these city leaders facing death threats for the building of, or trying to build, either or, all right, of these data centers. Now I want to grab the book of Proverbs, chapter 29, verse 2, and it reads, when the righteous are in authority, the people rejoice, but when the wicked beareth rule, the people mourn. All right. And we see that it's dealing more specifically over here in America, right? But really the whole world is mourning. But the main one of the main things that people are mourning about is these data centers. All right, this technology. You have flock cameras and stuff like that. All right, but the current digitalization, all right, the current pretty much big brother system that Esau is trying to force upon the people, all right, taking away privacy and so on and so forth. The people are mourning against that, and soon it's going to get to the point where people say fuck it, and stop adhering to the rules. America is going to become, how would you say that? Anarchaic? I'm not sure, but it's going to be filled with anarchy. All right, lawlessness, sedition, as scriptures say, because here it is, right? This is supposed to be a democracy where the people have ultimately say so, but here it is, the people that rule over them, all right, the ones that they quote unquote elected, which we know all of that stuff is set up. They want to choose regardless, but they aren't listening to the people, and therefore the people are going to stop listening to them. And the point I want to make is, right, these people, all right, they're dealing with America more specifically, right? But these people they're already in darkness. They already, the average person, if you aren't following Yahweh Ba'Shem Al-Bashai, all right, you're already in darkness. You already lack wisdom. All right, you're already a fool, and you're already wicked. All right, scriptures say, when you go to Romans, the 8th chapter, Romans chapter 8, verse 19. Verse 20. For the creature was made subject to vanity, not willingly, but by reason of him who hath subjected the same in hope. Now we know ultimately the creature just means creation. And now we know ultimately that this creature is really speaking about the house of Israel. But, obviously if Israel was made subject to vanity, then the rest of the nations were definitely made subject to vanity. The only difference is Israel, all right, is really meant to be a righteous nation, whereas the other nations are, they're meant to be them. They're meant to be heathen and act accordingly, right? So people are already subject to vanity, all right, already subject to BS, already subject to iniquities and so on and so forth, right? Amidst America, man, all right, scriptures say this is the mother of harlots, all right, of abominations, of pretty much the iniquity that we see going around in the earth today, all right, for the most part, it stems from America, all right? America is like the source. You know how you have oil rigs, right? How they pump the oil out of the ground, right? America would be, the spot where the oil is being pumped, right? The spot where the producer, that's the word, the producer. So you already have that, right? You already have the way people think in America. Now you throw lawlessness on top of that, man. What kind of wickedness do you think that stuff adds up to, right? To paint a picture of how bad it's really going to get here. When you go to, let's grab it in 2nd Ezra, since we mentioned it. But yeah, going back to what I started off with, though, in the spirit, right? I feel things are about to turn up real soon, man, on Jake. All right, scripture says a time of Jacob's trouble. All right, let's grab that first real quick. Then we can go to 2nd Ezra. It's the book of Daniel, chapter 12, verse 1. And at that time shall Michael stand up. Well, let's actually we can stay here. And at that time shall Michael stand up, the great prince, which standeth for the children of thy people. And there shall be a time of trouble, such as never was since there was a nation, even to that same time. All right, so we know that the Lord, if he wanted to, he can just turn the time of trouble on like this, the snap of his finger. But we know that the Lord always does things decently and in order. All right, he always, pretty much lays out pieces and manipulates this and that to build up to what he said was going to happen. And the things that we are seeing now, all right, is building up to, this time becoming like never before. Now it says here, Michael shall stand up. Michael. And at that time shall Michael stand up. And Michael speaking about the archangel Michael. All right, because the Lord, all right, again, this is a time like never before. So the Lord is going to have the angels, all right, protecting and defending his chosen, all right, miracles happening for his chosen, all right, even endowing some of his chosen, all right, with the spirit and the power to fight back themselves. So this is the time where the Lord is going to, turn back, all right, his heavy, intervention in the earth, all right, when it comes to miracles and so on and so forth, all right, to protect his elect, as it goes on to read, such as never was since there was a nation, even to the same time. And at that time thy people shall be delivered, who are the Lord's people. Well, anyone with basic scriptural knowledge would know that the Lord's people is Israel, all right. But when you start to learn, all right, the truth, you understand that the Lord doesn't consider all of Israel as his people right now, all right, because you have Israelites who are considered as heathens in the eyes of Yahweh Ba'ashem Al-Bashai. All right, they are strangers to Yahweh Ba'ashem Al-Bashai, ultimately not because the Lord, but because themselves. All right, they turned away from their God and walked off into the ways of the heathen and never came back. All right, the ones that are going to be delivered, these are the ones who came back to Yahweh Ba'ashem Al-Bashai through the spirit of truth. All right, and they believe in Yahweh Shai, all right, believe in his sacrifice, and they take hold on that belief, man. Those are the ones that are going to be delivered in this time. Everyone that shall be found written in the book, all right, and the book speaking about is the book of life, which is ultimately just dealing with the elect, all right, the chosen remnant of the nation of Israel. So getting 2nd Ezra 15th chapter, we start at verse 14. It reads, "Woe to the world and them that dwell therein, for the sword and their destruction draweth nigh, and one people shall stand up and fight against another, and swords in their hands." So, thinking about that in a modern sense, all right, what do you have? Civil wars, all right, race wars, which are heavy race wars coming. You see how Esau is inciting that, and even, global wars, pretty much division, all right, in all facets of life, all right, within the homes, between the mom and the dad, and the parents and the parents and their children, different families going at it, and all manners of division. Because when you think about it, all right, there's only one group of people on the planet who is truly united, right, and that is those who believe in Yahweh Ba'ashem Yahushai. All right, like Yahweh Shai said, let's grab that real quick. It's the book of Mark, chapter 3, verse 35. We start at verse 34. And it reads, "And he looked round about on them which sat about him, and said, Behold, my mother and my brethren, for whosoever shall do the will of the Most High, the same is my brother and my sister and mother." All right, so all of those who are doing the will of Yahweh Ba'ashem Yahushai, those are the only people on the planet, all right, who are truly united, all right, united in Yahweh Ba'ashem Yahushai. So when it comes to the rest of the world, the rest of the world cannot, sit there, and realistically say that, oh, we're one, we're together, and they don't have any, divisions among them, and the Lord is going to play, on that. The rest of the world doesn't have a single thing that they can all get behind and rally behind and fight for and this and that. They don't. All right. So again, the Lord is going to play on that and put spirits on people to pretty much further that further division, because they don't have anything that's holding them together. All right. They don't have any glue. Our glue is the foundation, Yahweh Ba'ashem Yahushai. All right. The word of the Lord, Yahweh Shai. That's our glue. That's our foundation. The rest of the world doesn't have a foundation, man. All right. So therefore, they're going to be able to, be moved around and divided and broken apart ultimately. Going back to 2nd Ezra, it's the book of 2nd Ezra chapter 15, verse 16. For there shall be sedition among men, and invading one another, they shall not regard their kings nor princes. All right, today your kings nor princes would be these city officials. All right, your mayors, your governors, and this councilman and that councilman and your president and so on and so forth. All right, but the title of the video that you're going to watch, right, is what those people are now receiving death threats. Why? Because of things that they're doing that people are not down with, and that's going to ultimately bring in that sedition. Let's grab the etymology on this word sedition. Sedition: rebellion, uprising, revolt, factitious commotion in the state, concerted attempt to overthrow civil authority, violent strife between factions, civil or religious disorder, riot, rebelliousness against authority. All right, so people are going to start rebelling against authority. And when you rebel against authority, that means you no longer adhere to that authority. You don't see them as authority. And therefore what? So who now do you see as authority? Yourself. All right? Because again, we and this is for people in the world, obviously, because we know who the highest authority is, Yahweh Ba'ashem Yahushai. So when things do get to this breaking point, you know, where people just say to hell with it, we still know where our authority is, and we still follow that authority. People are going to become an authority unto themselves. All right, tying back into what they are subject unto vanity. They have grown up in this darkness of America. So if you let people become authorities unto themselves, what type of wickedness do you think that's going to add up to? All right, what type of wickedness do you think that's going to produce over here in this side of the world, man? All right, and this is what the Lord is getting us prepared for spiritually. To grab the book of Matthew, chapter 24. It's the book of Matthew, chapter 24, verse 12. It reads here, and because iniquity shall abound. What is iniquity? Right? Iniquity ultimately goes into not following law. Looking into this word iniquity in the Greek, anomia, the condition of without law. Because ignorant of it, because of violating it, contempt and violation of law, iniquity, wickedness, right? So ultimately, lawlessness shall abound. The love of many shall wax cold. All right. So focusing on the love of many waxing cold. All right. You're going to have, again, all right, you already have people who were pretty much soaked in the darknesses and the weaknesses and the wickednesses, all right, and the iniquity of America. So when the love of many starts waxing cold, that's going to start to show more and more and more in people. All right, even people you might see today and, oh, he's kind-hearted and this and that, right? He wouldn't hurt a fly. You know, they're going to start showing that they're going to start showing that true Babylonian nature. All right, which brings death, destruction. You know, death and destruction. Is it going to? It's like a switch. It's going to flip in everyone. You know, even some people who claim to be believers in Yahweh Ba'ashem Yahushai. All right, the Lord is coming to put the not only coming to bring judgment, all right, but to put the world to a test. You know, to put his believers to a test. So not only are, you know, we're being put to a test by, you know, dealing with the things that the world is dealing with, but part of our test is having to deal with those that are in the world as well. All right, them failing their test, and now they're going buck wild and doing what they want, and you know, because again, the what America instills into people is no morals. So when people start to move, they become authority unto themselves. What's the, you know, what is the guideline? There is none, man. So that opens the doorway for all manners of wickedness. That's why it says the love of many shall wax cold, man. All right, and iniquity is going to abound. Now, when you go to the book of Proverbs, right? Because as we said, people are moving off of their own morals now, which really are none. You know, and even if you have certain people, they say they have morals, it is not according to the morals of Yahweh Ba'ashem Yahushai. All right, so ultimately it's evils. And again, those people who claim to have morals, you know, that's it's easy to act a certain way when, you know, things are there. But the Lord is coming to bring that more wild nature, all right, to the survival instinct nature to the world. You know, really, Esau turning back into a base man. Not that they ever weren't, but the Lord is going to bring out the real people. You know, the Lord knows what's laid what's being laid dormant in their spirit. But it's the book of Proverbs chapter 3 verse 7, and it reads, "Be not wise in thine own eyes, fear the Lord and depart from evil." All right, so people are going to be wise in their own eyes, doing whatever they want, being an authority unto themselves, following, moving off their morals. All right, which really, all right, is no morals, and moving off ultimately a lack of wisdom, because they don't have the wisdom of Yahweh Ba'ashem Yahushua. All right, they have the wisdom of wickedness. And scriptures say that the knowledge of wickedness is not wisdom, right? Because if you're committing this wickedness, if you are, taking part in doing these wicked things, then you must be a fool. Because that only brings death. That only brings the opposite of life. All right, that isn't that isn't profitable. It's the book of Ecclesiasticus chapter 19 verse 22. The knowledge of wickedness is not wisdom. All right, and that's ultimately the knowledge that these people have been instilled with being in America. So when they start to move off that knowledge, what is it going to bring? More and more wickedness, man. All right, and even worse, because although Esau's laws are fucked up, all right, you still had certain laws, that obviously, made sense. All right, no murder and stealing and so on and so forth. So when you drop that, there's no holds barred. Again, all right, they're only held down by their own morals. All right, but even that's not going to work, because you have to be held down by the spirit of Yahweh Ba'ashem Yahushua. All right, you don't hold any power, so the Lord's going to put spirits on people to where they're doing shit you never thought they'd do. And you already see that, throughout regular life. All right, you have a family member or something you grow up with, a year or two go by where you don't see them, and they're a completely different person in the gang and stealing and shooting at niggas now and so on and so forth. All right, it's like they did a whole 180. You were just stuck in the house playing the game. You wouldn't even want to come out. You couldn't even come outside and play football because you wanted to play whatever game it was. Now you selling drugs and doing this and that. What the hell happened? But the Lord can easily put a spirit on someone and make them flip. So if you don't have an anchor, all right, which is Yahweh Ba'ashem Yahushua, the second the spirit get on you, all right, it's through. You're through. And that's what the Lord is going to do to a lot of people, man. All right, the spirits, these evil spirits created for vengeance and so on and so forth, they're gonna have a lot of fun. It seems like, everyone in the heavens, all right, and those of us whose minds are in the heavens, we're all waiting on the Lord to turn things up. The knowledge of wickedness is not wisdom, neither at any time the counsel of sinners prudence. There is a wickedness and the same an abomination, and there is a fool wanting in wisdom. All right, so the Lord is going to give reins for all the fools to move off their foolish logic. So it's just going to be a bunch of foolery and wickedness. And so going back to Proverbs 3 and 7, it says, "Fear the Lord and depart from evil." All right, and people's own ways are going to be those evils that they won't be able to depart from, because what? They don't fear the Lord. So again, they don't have that ultimately that cleansing agent, all right, which is Yahweh Ba'ashem Yahushua and everything that comes with those names. All right, there's a reputation and substance in those names. All right, what those names mean, and what they go into, and what they're for, and so on and so forth. All right, so if you don't have that cleansing agent, Yahweh Ba'ashem Yahushua, then your ways are going to be evil. you know. And again, these evil times, this lawlessness is going to bring out the true ways of people, because they're all going to be evil, because they're all subject to vanity, man. All right, they all move off of their flesh. All right, they all, you know, operate in the carnalities of this world. So operating in the carnalities of this world to begin with, all right, and then being in America, the worst place, the place that appeases to all those carnalities, all right. So let's grab the book of Ecclesiasticus, the 12th chapter, because we mentioned that true colors are going to be shown. It's the book of Ecclesiasticus, chapter 12, verse 7. Give unto the good and help not the sinner. A friend cannot be known in prosperity. An enemy cannot be hidden in adversity. So when the whole country is in adversity, all right, all the people who were really enemies, all right, the people who were deep down, you know, rotten to the core, for lack of better words, it's going to show, it's going to come out, all right, and the love of many is going to wax cold. In the prosperity of a man, enemies will be grieved, but in his adversity, even a friend will depart. So there you go. All right, when the love of many waxing cold. When things get rough, when things get tough, all right, that division is gonna come, man, because they don't have an anchor. All right, again, as Yahushua said, he that doeth the will of my Father, the same as my mother and my brother. All right, the same as my brethren, the same as his friends, as he called the apostles, all right, or the prophets in the book of John, the 15th chapter. All right, he called them friends. But they all have that anchor, man, the will of Yahweh Ba'ashem Yahushua. The world don't got that. So when things do arise, all right, so does that division, you know. So again, you know, through the Spirit, you know, we can see that, you know, the more heightened, you know, parts of Jacob trouble is looming. You know, it's coming closer and closer and closer, and you have to be ready. All right, spiritually ready. Let's grab the book of Amos, the 8th chapter. It's the book of Amos, chapter 8, verse 11. Behold, the days come, saith the Lord Yahweh, Ba'ashem Yahushai, that I will send a famine in the land, not a famine of bread, nor a thirst for water, but of hearing the words of the Lord Yahweh Ba'ashem Yahushai. So the words of the Lord, all right, going ultimately into the will of Yahweh Ba'ashem Yahushai, going into the faith of Yahweh Ba'ashem Yahushai, all right, all of that is going to be lost, and therefore what? That anchor is going to be lost. So when the Lord turns things up, if you don't have no anchor, you're going to be washed away, all right, to your own destruction, ultimately, all right. So that's why scriptures say to what? To seek the Lord while he may be found. Seek the Lord while he has his men, you know, out there on the streets prophesying, uploading videos on YouTube prophesying, all right. Seek Yahweh Ba'ashem Yahushai, all right, for you Israelites out there, so-called Negroes, Latinos, and Native Americans, all right, in which due to the fact that Israel was scattered, we can look like any nation on the earth, you know, and we are scattered all around the world, so we can look like anyone, all right. So, you know, really, if your heart, your spirit, your mind, all right, resonates with this word, repent, all right, and turn back to your God, man, because only an Israelite will have the spirit to do so. And they shall wander from sea to sea, and from the north even to the east. They shall run to and fro to seek the word of the Lord, and shall not find it. In that day shall the fair virgins and young men faint for thirst. They that answer by the sin of Samaria, and say, Thy God, O Dan, liveth, and the manner of Beersheba liveth, even they shall fall, and never rise up again, going into those who served idols, all right, instead of the Heavenly Father. And that's ultimately most of our people today. All right, and even if they're not worshiping so-called Jesus Christ, quote unquote, or they aren't Muslim and this and that, well, the idol that they worship is themselves. All right, feeding their own belly. You know, because if you aren't worshiping Yahweh Ba'ashem Yahushai, you're worshiping something else, whether it's you, and that's whether you realize it or not, whether it's you, money, you know, the world, a different idol, or whatever it is, you know, and there are dire consequences for that. All right, that's ultimately what got us in the position that we're in today as a nation in the first place, was idol worship. But through Yahushua, through the sacrifice of Yahushua, all right, and the love and the mercy of the Heavenly Father, we have a way back, man. Right? You should want to take hold of that way before it's too late. So I'll close it out there. Lord's will, this video was edifying, uplifting, and or informative in some way, shape, or form. And once more, I would like to give all praises, honor, and glory to Yahweh, Bahasham, Yahushai, and Bahasham, Rachak Wadash, and double honors to the apostles and elders of Great Millstone, and Shalom to the hopeful elect.